Happy Thursday, everybody. This is JoJo Bennington, and it's the Empowering Healthy Women 30-minute Thursday night check-in to just talk about girl stuff. So we get together every week and talk about things that are important to us. So everything from mammograms to mindset to menopause to you name it, whatever. What happens to roll our way, we do. And what's been so great is I just have had such amazing people that flow into my life. So I get to bring them on, introduce them to all of you, and let them impact all of you guys like they impact me. So so excited to share with you tonight. When we were in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, Carrie MacArthur and we were at the eWomen event, and on the very last day when we were leaving, I came downstairs to have breakfast with the girls, and this lovely person sat down at the table, and we started to have a little bit of a chat, and I think that chat turned into, I don't know what, like 5 hours. I don't know. We talked forever.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, but so just to tell you a little bit about who she is. She, so much, okay? So know that she engineered an entire escape out of the Middle East to save her and her daughter from this crazy relationship. She's struggled through PTSD along with her daughter, and really has reinvented herself as she's really come back into the United States and started her own business and become a speaker. And she's actually writing a memoir about her whole story. And so now she helps women worldwide reclaim their voice, their worth, and confidence, and really create a joyful, productive life, which is what we all want, right? So her memoir is called 11 Hours to Freedom, and will soon be out, and her website will soon be launched. But what's so awesome is they have really founded the movement of Love is Kind. And so they have the Love is Kind network, and they actually were the founders of National Love Day. So they've been actually awarded National Love Day, which is July 27th. So it's National Love is Kind Day. So that they totally put that together because love is kind. It's not terrorizing, right? For sure. And so I just am so excited to have Miss Rosie Aiello with us tonight, and hopefully we'll stop talking. And I'm going to stop talking, let you talk, because, but will you just, thanks so much for being here. Will you just, I know we talked about, tell us a little bit of your story, because I know people will want to hear that piece, right?
Okay. Well, it's so good to see you. I love the Zoom format because I use it all the time too. So thank you for having me here. So I'm originally, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I'm originally from California, and I was in a high-powered job in Silicon Valley, but then I had met my husband at Berkeley when we were undergrads. We didn't get married right away, but then when we did, he was Lebanese, and we moved to the Middle East, where I lived for almost 25 years. So I lived about half the time in Saudi Arabia and about half the time in Lebanon. And I didn't know, I was married 18 years. I was married 18 years before I even knew I was in an abusive relationship. And, part of the reason for that was I didn't have the vocabulary. I just thought, it's just me, right? Does anybody relate to that? It's just me. You start to put everything on you. If he told me, you're not a good, I know you love your daughter, but you're not a good mother. If you hear that for a couple of decades, you start to believe things like that. If you, which he did all the time, oh, you're not a supportive wife. You're not this, even though I worked in his company and helped him manage everything in his company, at least from a financial, because my background is, I have an MBA in finance. So my background is in finance. So I did all the financial stuff. I did all of that, but nothing was satisfying him. So it was this constant struggle, just like, to do better, to be better. And I constantly felt I just wasn't getting it. I was high functioning in work, then all of a sudden I wasn't now. I worked hard. It's like he had the goal, and I'm coming along, and then I get to the goal. It's like, and the goal kept shifting. And then, but it just never dawned on me. I just thought I wasn't good enough. I wasn't trying hard enough. And he would say, Rosie, if you only do better, then I'll be happy. I mean, literally, it would be like that. Or he would sit me down and lecture me for maybe 3 to 4 hours, screaming at me. So when we were in Lebanon, I could start to see, more of a pattern, but again, I didn't have a name. And when my daughter was little, she was like 7 or 9. So children see things at a much younger age than, we know it, but we don't really think about it. And we would be at dinner, for example, and she knew that he was not treating me nice. So she would say to him, hey, Papa, stop being so mean to Mama. And so he thought that was kind of cute. So he used to call her Mama's little lawyer as she defended me. So here I am, an adult being defended by a 7-year-old, because what I had learned was to keep my mouth shut, because when I would express myself, the flames got worse. So it was like adding fuel to the fire. So I learned as a survival mechanism to keep my mouth shut. So I lost my voice. I lost asking for anything. I lost how to express myself. I lost who I was. By the time my daughter was a junior at the American University of Beirut, she came to me one day and just said, you got to get me away from my father. She couldn't take it anymore. And so within 4 months, I planned the escape of our lives. I removed things. I mean, the first thing I removed were the photo albums. It's like, what do you take? And I didn't take much, because I was in a foreign country, and my husband was basically home almost 24/7. So it was really hard to take things. So I removed a few, some of my clothes from the closet, but not enough for him to notice, right? So everything had to be done really surreptitiously. And only, I told you 18 years I was married. In those 18 years, only 3 people knew what the situation was. And it was at 18 years. That's when I discovered I was in an abusive situation. I told my brother and my 2 best friends in the United States. So for 18 years, nobody knew. And then I told 3 people. And then when I was designing the escape, I told 2 more of my friends who were in Lebanon. They're Americans. And because I needed their help, to organize things. So when she had come to me and told me, you got to get me away from here, I started to plan it. Now, the abuse was getting worse and worse as time went on. I had, being in the Middle East, I have lived under a lot of wars, bombs and booby-trapped cars and explosives. And I've driven through, fire. And I mean, I've lived under a lot of military and political terrorism. I know what that's like. I know when they're flying overhead and you don't know if it's a sonic boom because of their F-16 jets or it's a bomb dropping. I've heard, I didn't know a bomb was being ejected, from our side, or a bomb was landing. I mean, it was just crazy. And so you get on high alert. And that's what happens in these kinds of relationships. You start to get on really high alert. And so I was constantly tense. And I literally lost who I was. I, probably looked pretty much the same. We all look good on the outside, but we're dying on the inside. And so I got my brother's help to help, and I told him what was happening. He knew because he knew for like 6 years before I could get out. And I want to tell you that in the Middle East, so this is the complicating factor, in the Middle East, there's no such thing as custody battle. There's nothing like that. Custody automatically goes to the father until the child becomes major. So when my daughter graduated from high school and went to to college is like, well, I've been married 20 years. What's another 40 years, another 4 years? You do what you can, because I would have never, ever left without my daughter. So here I am planning this escape. And so I'm figuring out, what do I need to do? And so I start to make lists, lists and lists of things that I had to do. I started to copy and scan important documents. I snuck things out of my apartment, our condominium, into the car, and then took those to a friend's house who was holding them for shipment later. And mind you, in Lebanon, where we were, there's electricity shortages. And when there's electricity shortages, the elevator doesn't work when we were on the 4th floor. So I had to make sure everything was matched. He was out of the house. I could pack everything. I had electricity, and I could get out. And we lived in this small condominium building, and nobody would see me. So even as I tell it, and I've written the draft, for the book. So I have like 40 pages of details of the escape, but you'll probably see like 2 by the time it gets published. So I'm giving you some inside stories that I normally don't talk about, actually. But what happened was, I obviously tried to make the marriage work. And then when I realized that he was abusive and narcissistic, and then later on that he was a sociopath, after I came here, it's not easy to just get up and leave, and even with all of his treatment of me, I still felt guilty. So, and I didn't know about mantras. I didn't know about personal development. I didn't know any of that stuff, nothing. But I created for myself, to keep me going, these phrases. And I said, I don't need to be a martyr. I only have one life to live, and I'm going to live it. And my daughter and I deserve a happy and joyful life. And, with that I kept going. I said that, dozens of times every day as he's screaming at me, and as I'm packing up things in the guest bedroom with the door locked, as I'm bringing things down. I deserve to be treated with kindness. I deserve to live without fear. And we arrived in the United States. It was kind of like, if you've read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning and how he got out. He got out by burying himself in a pile of dead bodies on a truck. That's how he got out. So I got out in full view of my husband. We flew together under the guise of going on a regular trip to California, where I'm from, to visit my family. And when we went through those doors of San Francisco International Airport, my brother was waiting for me. I knew exactly where he was going to be standing. I didn't have to look for him in the crowds. And my daughter and I took our luggage carts, planted them behind my brother. My brother went to him and said, Rosie's a little upset. She needs some time alone. I was so terrified of him. I couldn't even have my brother tell him that, I'm leaving him forever. I mean, it took a lot of therapy for me to be able to get that voice back. I was so terrified. I mean, it was like living we had real landmines in Lebanon, and it was like living with one there, with him just exploding without even knowing why. I mean, literally, if I breathed wrong, he would have exploded. So there we were in the airport, and we turned around and left him standing alone in the airport.
Wow. Okay, everybody, let's take a big breath.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
But let me tell you, ladies, there's nothing like your freedom. There's not a day that goes by that I look out my window and I think about my freedom, and I know that there are so many women suffering today, all the time, everywhere in the world. I've spoken to women all over the world and sort of have the same pattern of the man. And I guess, what I, profess now is that Love is kind. You deserve to be treated with kindness. And sometimes we forget that, and I surely did. It took a lot of courage, but, I really wasn't thinking about courage. I was just thinking about getting out. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to do with my life. All I could see was get out. How was I going to get out? And then I'll worry about the details later about my life. Of course, I'll think, I'm going to end up on the street. But so, as you think about your relationships and even the relationship with yourself, after being in this, after being abused for so long, after being told I can't do this and you're not good enough and you're lousy and you're not a team player and you're just being demeaned nonstop, I was physically out of it. But then I had to start training myself to not say those words to myself, because what happens, you start to abuse yourself, right? And so part of it is learning, to be kind first to yourself and to know what is a good relationship. What are some things to think about? Because love is kind and it's not terrorizing. It's not abusing. It's not humiliating. It's not screaming. It's not demeaning. It's not belittling. That's not love is kind. It's finding the patterns. Even an abuser can be kind once in a while. And that's why you get sometimes this what's called the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde syndrome. They're really, really nice and they bring you in and then they pounce at you and then you're just crushed again. But then they're really nice and you go, oh, well, he's not mean all the time. He's not, nasty all the time. So one of the hallmarks is, are you making excuses for someone else's behavior? And it could be your children. It could be your spouse, it could be your partner, it could be somebody you work with. Do you find yourself making an excuse for somebody's behavior? So that becomes a red flag. So what, this is something I want you to watch out for. Are they kind to you? And it's not once in a while. You see their pattern of consistent kindness to you. They listen actively and sincerely to you. Right? They'll even say, tell me what you need, or you ask them and they say, oh, okay. They respond positively instead of twisting it around. They'll twist it around. The abuser will twist it around and say, you're always demanding. You're always doing this. They'll use lots of extremes, with the adverbs, never and always, So they'll always put it on top of you as if it's your fault. So watch out. Are you being blamed? This is a hallmark. You respect each other's, in a good, healthy relationship, you respect each other's privacy and boundaries. Like even for my daughter, her father would just barge in her room. I mean, we're talking about, you shouldn't do it anyway, but she's a teenager, she's in college, he would just barge in and just like expect her to pay him homage, like adore me. I mean, she would tell me, she and I are very, very, very close. I only have one child. But as we're writing this memoir, I mean, it's like I've been learning things I couldn't even believe. He would say, oh yeah, Mom, when we're in the car alone, he would just ask me to adore him. So things that your child may not even tell you about, or maybe they're, at school, things that are happening. In a healthy relationship, you both pursue your own goals. He's not threatened by you having your own life. So if you have to make excuses for wanting to do things, then, this is a method of control. So these are all methods of control over you. It's just encased in a different way. So I don't know, I can go on for quite a while on this, but I can talk a little bit about why we're writing the memoir. I can give you want me to do that? Okay. So
we would like to hear too about the Love is Kind movement that you've put together and
okay.
the special day and things like that.
Okay.
So we see a lot of positive that's come from this. So we see obviously that you've come through this harrowing experience and the person that you are now and what you're doing. So shine the light for us on this side, on the good things that are happening.
Yeah. So the reason we wrote the memoirs, one, everyone's telling us, you know, you have such an amazing story, should be in a book or a movie. So, okay, we're doing that now. You know, we're working on that. But the memoir is divided into 3 parts. It's called, the first part is the flight for freedom, because it's called 11 Hours for Freedom. So that first part. The second part is the fight for freedom. And the third part is a fulfillment for freedom. And even though I started to tell you, even though you're physically extracted, you know, from the abuse, still, I mean, there's a lot going on here, right? You know, everything in your life is between here. And of course, I didn't know anything. You know, I was like, blah, I knew nothing. And so for me to just like reclaim my life. And the truth is, it wasn't until a year ago, you know, I was doing work with my therapist, that I finally was able to believe that, yes, I was a good mother. Took me all this time. I've been in the United States 9 years now. So it took me 8 years, you know, not like I was working on it the whole time, but I had that belief the whole time. And then it took me almost a year of working on that for me to overcome that fear. So we wrote the book not to tell my story. We're writing the book to help other women. We have, my daughter and I are doing this together, and we have a global mission to help 1 million women and their children release themselves from the shackles of abuse. Because what I know for sure is that when you are released, when you can get out, you can create a joyful, productive, and prosperous life. It takes steps, but you can do it. And your life is worth it. And that's why we also created the National Love is Kind Day. And it came, that title and the title of our movement and everything came really from, you know, I was inspired by Mother Teresa. And she said, you know, if you invite me to an anti-war rally, I won't be there. You invite me to a pro-peace rally, I'll be there. So I wanted to talk about, what do we want? I didn't want to be in the talk of abuse. And I mean, you know, I have to address it. You know, talk about some of the signs of it. But that's not where I want to go. I want to take women forward, you know, how to reclaim your voice, your confidence, your courage, how to move women forward to show that they do deserve to be treated with kindness. And they need to start treating themselves with kindness, obviously, first. So that's the goal. And that's what our movement is all about, is really changing the dynamics. Because what I believe is that when you have kindness within the family, you have that permeates into kindness within the community and kindness into the world. And so it becomes a win-win instead of a lose-lose. We can do this. And this is not about men bashing. All I'm saying is, you know, we want kind, supportive men in the movement. We need the support of good men in the movement. And also that men have been playing a role of, you know, having the power. So we're just saying, you know what? You guys can keep your power, but don't dominate us and not let us have our own power. Because women, you know what? I think we're pretty strong women, aren't we? We have pretty good things between here, right? We're pretty smart. We're very powerful. We have a lot to say. We have an impact to make in this world. And whether it's one person or a community, your voice matters. And that's what I want to encourage you, is to keep sharing your voice and who you are, because together we can make a difference in this world. And so I'm doing my part. I'm not here to change the whole world, but I'm doing my part. And I love your support as I'm doing this.
Well, and it's the butterfly wings that make the ripple, right? So,
yeah.
And we appreciate the thought of, you know, I think that, you know, once upon a time when we looked at feminism, right, it was about us being the man or in the place of the man. And in the new evolved sort of look at it, it's allowing, it's not taking their manhood away or taking their strength away so we can be stronger. It's standing in our power and allowing them to still be who they are without, and to be strong in our feminine side, which we can totally do, and without being dominated and controlled. And so I love the thought of, yes, we can all have our own thing, just because I marry you doesn't mean I lose my identity and lose my world and lose everything that I wanted because I decided to share a life with you. Right?
Well, exactly. And so many, women, have lost their voice, and then they forget how to ask for things, I work with my clients just on that, they forget what boundaries really mean and how to do that. They forget what, or let, because we want to be nice, right? How many want to be nice? Oh, I don't want to be the mean girl. I'm nice, right? But what's the cost of being nice? But you can be kind and still stand in your power, right? It's not about just, I got to be nice all the time. But what is it doing? So, and remember, and this has been really strong for me and hard for me too, as being a model for our children. I mean, the fact is, I was not a good model for my daughter in many ways. She saw me as being, diminished by her father. She saw me not standing up for myself. And because I was so afraid, she saw me not standing up for her until it was almost too late. So if we can create confident women, that creating confident children, can you see how this just makes everything grow in such a positive way? I mean, it's just like, my heart goes to the children. And that's why this is a movement for the women and their children, to help them become the people that they deserve to be. Anyone have questions? I saw her put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anna.
Gotta unmute her. Okay.
Well, first of all, Rosie, thank you so much for sharing your story. Because when JoJo said breathe, it was probably for me, because I was like the entire time. So thank you. I'm honored that you shared that story with me. I have a question. So, you talk about it took you a long time to realize that you are a good mother. So now that you guys are sort of on the other side of it, if you will, how is your daughter dealing with that? And so, like, going forward, because I could imagine that her relationships with men can be very, I don't know, like
challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was for both of us. I mean, when I first arrived in the United States, I couldn't even look at a man. Now I do want to tell you that I'm in a really wonderful, kind relationship. I mean, the guy, he's fabulous. But so thank you for that question. So, throughout the whole time, my daughter and I have always been close and very loving, but there was this push and pull, like, well, why didn't you save me, Mom? And I'm thinking, why didn't you defend me more, Mom? Or save me earlier? And I thought, I just saved your freaking life, and now you're bitching at me. I was like, really? But, that's reality, And so it's been this, she still kind of goes into that, like, when she gets to a new episode. Now, my daughter is almost 30, so she's not a child. So remember, she was a junior at the university when we left. So, but it's been a struggle for her because we were both diagnosed with PTSD. She has complex PTSD because she grew up in it. And your memories are in your cells. So now she has to release a lot of this trauma memory. And it's, there'll be a trauma released, for example, but then there'll be another one that will come to the surface. So it's recognizing the triggers and keep going. So, she's, like we both do, she's further behind the curve than I am in my healing, because again, she was born into it. I at least had some foundation before, and it was on a sliver by the time I left. So it's challenging, but it's, we're doing this movement together. We're writing the book together, and she's going to focus on sort of like the millennials, being the child of a narcissistic or sociopathic parent, because it's from a different angle. And that's the power of our book. Why I wanted to do it from that. It's like, because you'll read other books, oh, the wife is, complaining, my husband was abuser and all that. You see that a lot. I'm not going to diminish you at all, obviously, but you don't hear it from the child's point of view and the dynamics of what happens to the family. What is the child thinking and saying? I mean, my daughter was suicidal at 9 years old, and I didn't know that till we were writing the book. So it's pretty shocking. Yeah. Thank you. Pearl. Has to be unmuted. We can't hear you. Got to unmute Pearl.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go,
Can
Pearl.
you hear me now?
I can. Go for it.
Oh, thank you so much for your story. I think I'm living in that same situation, kind of like, not as drastic as you, but your story sounds so much like, I don't know if you've seen the movie, Not Without My Daughter.
Yes, when I first came to the United States, because I said I'll never leave without my daughter, they told me about that, so I finally did see it. It's similar, but quite a bit different. I mean, we're both we were both married to people from the Middle East.
Right, and they are so controlling, and I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but they are. Foreigners are so controlling. Portuguese or Spanish or whatever. I'm really glad. I'm just so glad. I'm sorry to say, but I'm so glad that you got out of that situation.
Thank you. Me too.
And I don't think that I'm going to ever get out of a situation like that, but because I'm still doing a lot of praying about things. Oh, I hope you're doing a lot of praying too, because your daughter is definitely going to need a lot of support, right? Praying support. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, so, God bless you both.
Well, thank you, Pearl, and you can, anybody can reach out to me, so I can give you guides. In fact, I have a little free gift for everybody too. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But it's just that, we all have this, I'm not good enough syndrome, right? And when you're in an abusive situation, it's like, being, like that having limiting beliefs on steroids is like. I like to call it, it's so intensified. But your life is worth it. This is, one life that you have, and you're just so worth it, and you're so deserving, and you are love. You have your worth, and it's just about reclaiming it. It's all underneath there. And what I learned was that being alone, I was physically isolated, geographically isolated. This is also a hallmark of abusers. Of course, I was like, way over there. And mind you, my husband was Christian, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter Christian, Muslim, doesn't matter nationality. I told you, I've spoken to women all over the world. But I isolated myself even more because of shame. So 25 years of not telling anybody about my story, about what I was going through, except for those 5 people. 3 knew after I'd been married 18 years, and I added 2 more people when I had to escape. But just the shame of it, So now I don't want any woman to be alone. Being alone and thinking you have to, like this group that you're doing, you're not alone. JoJo is supporting you in this thing. And that is, to me, that's the only way to be, because otherwise our minds will go, it's like, or whatever. It's going to go one way or the other, but it's not going to go the right way when you start being by yourself and start hearing, your mind will just create all these stories up and will focus on the negative. Now I can go on because there's a lot of happening in the brain, biologically in the brain, chemically in the brain when you're abused. I'm not going to go into that, but these things happen, and when we're alone, we make it worse. So being in a group, supporting each other, reaching out and asking for help, and knowing that you're not alone and there's going to be somebody there to help you is absolutely critical. Whatever it is, whether it's, keeping healthy, like what you guys are doing, or being in an abusive situation, or just any, having trouble with your children. You're thinking, oh, mine's the only kid who does that, right? All you need to do is talk to a couple of parents like, yeah, my kid does that too, right? But we think we're alone, and then we're afraid to ask for help. So that would be another, lesson that I would just like to leave you with, is to stay in this group. Everybody, JoJo's amazing, and you want to stay with her and be in a supportive group. And if you need to be in another supportive group for something else, then do it, but not be alone.
Thank you so much. I know it was so great to hear your story and see what happens on the other side, and know that there's the positive outcome can be there, and to just and really thank you for saying reach out and ask for help, because a lot of us do this in silence and don't ask for help. And so to learn how to do that is amazing. And so because we're at time, it's at 6:06, so we really try to hold it to 30 minutes, and we're kind of over. But is everybody on the Facebook page? Hey, Pearl. Okay, let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I've never been a part of a group. This is awesome. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much, JoJo.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to some more.
You're so welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good.
So I know that you wanted to offer something. And also, so first of all, we want to make sure that everybody's in the Empowering Healthy Women Facebook page, because we will stay connected there. And also Rosie's going to, if you have any questions for her, she can post up responses. You can get in touch with her there. Also, I know that you had something that you wanted to offer. So if you want to talk about that for 1 second, and then we'll also post up a way for them to get that in the group.
Yeah. Well, it's a good segue from what you were just saying, being afraid to ask. So I have a guide on how to ask confidently for what you want. So you can go to 11, it's the number 11, hourstofreedom.com/gift. I can write it even in the chat here. So it's 11hourstofreedom.com/gift, and you can grab it there. It's, again, it's everything that I had to go through and what I'm learning. Plus I studied, I don't know if you can see those books, but that's just part of my library, and I'm just a voracious reader. Yeah, like you, JoJo, right? I mean, I've read those books. So it's 11hourstofreedom.com/gift. So it's 11 keys to ask confidently for what you want. And within it, I have the Ask Sandwich strategy. So you need to really want to grab that.
So awesome. Thank you so much for all of your time and your knowledge and your love, and for what you're pouring into the world. We so appreciate you. And
thank you, Rosie.
We might have to part 2 this.
Yeah. And join the Love is Kind movement in Facebook groups. In the Facebook group, go to the Love is Kind movement. I would love to have you be a part of it and continue the conversation.
That's awesome. And we'll get all that posted up so everyone can have access to it. For sure. And so thank you so much. And everybody, please send big kisses.
And I'm a big hugger too.
Okay. We'll virtual hug.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rosie. Love you. Can't wait to see you soon.
I know. Just a few weeks, couple weeks.
Bye, everyone. Have an amazing week.
Yeah.
See you next week.
You guys are awesome. Keep it up. Woo!